Good afternoon, everybody. We're here for another episode of What's the Buzz with a good friend of mine, Troy Stovall, who is in Annapolis today. Welcome, Troy.
Hey, buddy. Always good seeing you, man.
Yeah, likewise.
Where did my
Your
picture
camera
go?
just
Yeah, it did. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on, bro. Again, I've never used this platform before, so I don't know what's.
all good.
Let's try
If
that. There we go.
technology, there you go. If technology didn't tweak like that, it wouldn't be any fun,
Wouldn't
wouldn't
be any fun. Exactly.
it? Well, thanks for joining me today. For everybody joining in, our What's the Buzz interview series is where we interview ecosystem builders and the people that are really working to support startups and innovation economy across the markets we serve. Um, we've been doing this over the past year, and throughout one of my favorite conversations I have every other week, and it really, again, shows the breadth of work that happens to help our innovation economy really tick and go. Um, this episode is sponsored by our good friends at CRB. If you're not familiar with CRB, they are literally building our innovation ecosystem.
Yep.
They're
Mhm.
a design build firm based out of Rockville. They're a national firm specialized in life sciences. If you're working in a lab in Maryland, it's a good bet they had their hands in it.
Yep.
I was actually just with Marco Chacon last night, Troy, at the 4MLK opening,
Yep.
and I was reflecting with some people there when Paragon sold to Catalent for over $1 billion. And it literally happened the day after they opened the Catalent gene therapy building down in Harmons that CRB was a big part of. But again, it goes to show you, like, what we do. It's a lot of moving parts, isn't it? It's
Yep.
building and labs and investment and workforce. I mean, there's a lot of
Yep.
components to it, and it's
Yep.
policy, which is where you are today down in Annapolis. So
I am in Annapolis. I'm in a hallway outside of a session. I'm going to go in. We testified yesterday, and I'm in support of Maryland Secretary of Commerce Kevin Anderson's, who's on our board also. He's testifying here. As soon as I hang up with you, I'll be going in support of him.
very
So,
good.
but even yesterday, your point about ecosystem. So yesterday, I couldn't attend the 4MLK. Regrettably, I wanted to be there. We had TEDCO folks that were there, obviously, but I was here in Annapolis because both the Maryland Chamber and the Maryland Tech Council had their various meet the state folks and receptions and dinners yesterday, and the governor spoke at the Maryland Tech Council's event last night. So, yeah, a lot of moving parts. It's that time of the year, and it's a budget issue. I'm sure we'll talk about that. So yeah, so this is a busy time here.
It
It's
sure
a busy
is.
time.
It's good though. It's beginning of the year though. It's like, you got a lot of runway in front of us, right? So everyone's rethinking about kind of what they're going to accomplish this year. Um, so I think it's a good time of year. I saw some of the budget announcements come out yesterday. It looks like
Hmm.
there's a lot of Governor Moore is really putting a lot of attention into making Maryland a place where really everyone can thrive, and where we become the possibilities that we all know we can become when it comes to technology and innovation and jobs.
Yeah, I think there's several pieces that he's done. He camp one of the campaign platforms was, leave no one behind. One of his army, and so that has he's maintained that mentality. But he has a fiduciary and fiscal responsibility to obviously have a balanced budget,
Mm.
and to do something. As opposed to trying to fix, because I'm sure it would have been easy for him to fix it just doing some budget gimmicks, and there's ways to do it in a one-time thing and leave it to somebody else to figure out, if you would. um, but what he is doing and his team is doing is laying groundwork for some foundational shifts of how government works and should work. Modernizing that, I think. Two, bringing together, using my words, stitching together the pieces of the state that need to be stitched together, both public and the private sector. And then lastly, obviously, and these things take money, is putting investments into things. And I think one of the things we've done as a state, you and I have talked about this, is we've done kind of the peanut butter strategy. We've put a little bit into a lot. And what he's doing is putting scaled investments into a few. That doesn't mean we won't invest in some of those other things. It just means that there's going to be an intentionality into, certain sectors that we believe and he believes that we can be long-term winners in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And one of those sectors, of course, is close to our heart, which is the life science sector. And And I think there's
Exactly.
a lot of data that shows that there's that does where it's it's not leaving everyone behind, right? Because there's a lot of sectors in Maryland, but the life science sector has an impact factor, right? So it's like
Hmm.
every job created in life sciences creates the 3.9 other jobs for the state. So I think you have some of these sectors that have this additive value.
Hmm.
um, Life
Multiply
sciences, tech, multiplier effect. Yeah,
multiply, the economists call it multiplying. I think you're right, your numbers are right. I think we've actually missed out on additional numbers because one of the things we don't have, we do a great job of 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 labbing it, if you will, thinking the research around it and even launching it, but we don't have a strong manufacturing part of that. And some of the manufacturing, even for some of our bigger entities here in Maryland, they go to North Carolina or a few other states to do the actual manufacturing. And so think about, if you had manufacturing, your number of 1 to 3.9, which is an accurate number, could easily be doubled, if not even more
absolutely.
than that. And so he's laying the groundwork in terms of creating that capacity, rethinking zoning, rethinking site readiness, rethinking the seed dollars required to make manufacturing a vibrant part of the Maryland economy.
I love it. Actually, historically, BioBuzz started actually during a time where we had a strong biomanufacturing sector, and in the course of 18 months, we lost five major biomanufacturing companies. We lost Shire, Activist,
And this,
Baxter,
yep,
Lonza
yep.
pulled out. It was like and again, I think there were a lot of factors to it. It was 2008. There was a little recession. There's a lot of things happening, but and then, of course, broader manufacturing. I mean, Maryland's a blue collar state. I mean, there's a lot of like we build stuff here.
Mhm.
Like getting back to that, building stuff is how we build each other up.
Amen. So, that's the governor's focus on that, and then we've got certain programs at TEDCO as well, between our Ecotech Growth Fund, the work that's coming out of Maryland Stem Cell Research Fund. They've got a manufacturing piece, so we all see it. And so, but the point is, like I said earlier, how do we stitch these things together so we're not doing these things in a solo or
Yeah,
silo, but we're doing them in a stitched fashion,
yeah,
but also bringing scale to it as well. So I think that's where you're going to start to see more conversation around those types of things. Move
yeah,
away from the silos, move more to stitching, and how do we create the scale within that?
yeah. Create more collisions, right?
You remember exactly,
Yeah, I
exactly.
remember. Um, Yeah, Troy, first of all, congratulations on the expo. Last time we talked was in December. The expo is back after a kind of hiatus after COVID.
Hmm.
That is one of those programming elements that do kind of bring everybody together. Cross sector, really
Hmm.
around a common kind of build and invest mentality. What were your thoughts coming out of that?
So, first of all, thank you. Yeah, it was great. And I also have to shout out Miss Tammy Thomas and the DevMart team and all the whole Techco family. But I think that's part of it. I've been here since I'm in my fifth year now at Techco. Started in the 2020, September 2020. So I'll be celebrating my fifth year anniversary here this year. And so this is my first expo. And in my 5 years, though, we've dramatically grown TEDCO. If you even just look at Tammy's team, most of her team had never experienced or planned the expo other than one young lady, Cassie. And then most of the TEDCO team had never attended an expo. So but the point I'm being is that for us as a team to be able to pull that off and to have the collaborativeness, if that's a word, amongst the TEDCO team for us to come together and to make people feel, and I mean, I'm telling you, Chris, and you know this and being in the social media space, it's been over a month. That was December the 4th, and it's been over a month, and we still see people posting original posting
Yeah,
about their experience at Expo over a month later. And so, to answer your question, that's the most thrilling thing, that people who, these are just good folks who just showed up and they're making postings, and particularly the people who said this was their first Expo, or the people who've even said they've been to multiple expos or other types of expo-like events, just applauding the quality, the content, and most important, like you said, the collisions, the ability to see and meet folks they hadn't seen or needed to see.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Tammy is she's like my spirit animal sometimes. I'm like, I don't know, I don't know how she does what she does. She's amazing at it, and she's got a great team. Um, but it is, she creates an experience around a lot of those things, right? Around collisions, around good content, around challenging conversations that take away. So all those things are really important, and I think that that's probably why a month later you're still seeing this reverberation of it. And when events live on, you're in the right swim lane.
No question, brother.
What else? I mean, I'd love to talk a little bit about what's in store this year at TEDCO. what what are some of the transformative things that kind of came about last year, the new programs or things that have really set a stage? Maybe we'll start there and then talk about kind of what
Yeah,
2025
yeah.
looks like.
Yeah, I think again, Expo, what we did at Expo, obviously did all the things that you're talking about. And again, thanks for folks, your listeners who attended Expo. Thank you for coming out, and the exhibitors and the speakers. Um, we made some big announcements there. We made an announcement about the Equitech Growth Fund.
Hmm.
Equitech Growth Fund was dollars that again, I'm here in Annapolis, that the legislators provided to us for the next 8 years. We're getting $5 million a year to invest in the people who know me, and you know me, I talk in alliterations. And so to invest in the places and the people, or said another way, infrastructure and workforce. And so we anticipated, just the way the math works, gave away about $7 million, just the way the math kind of worked out. Um, and Chris, I thought we would get 30 to 40 applications. And what we were looking for in those applications, we were looking for three things. We were looking for one, you got to come to the table with a good stitching. You got to come together with people that you wouldn't normally come to the table with. If you're in Central Maryland, you need to come with somebody from Western Maryland. If you're a predominantly white institution, you need to come with a Black institution, right? And so we wanted to force that. So that was one. Two, um, we knew we weren't giving a ton of money away, and you needed to basically show up with not just funds. This couldn't be the stuff that made it happen. This had to be the stuff that helped seal the deal, if that makes a difference. So you had to make sure that our monies helped seal the deal, but you didn't need it. If we didn't get it, you still would be able to do it. But also to that point, and the third thing, we were looking for folks who had funds that were sustainable. So we didn't want to just be put something in and we find out 2 years later this thing is dead. We want to see uh, sustainability and impact. So we thought we would get 30 to 40 applications. We get a 75 for about $31 million, $32 million. We awarded 14 for 7 million. And if you look at the impact we're going to have, we're going to do the training part of it. We believe that we'll get to over 100,000 people to be placed in over 20,000 jobs in the next 3 to 4 years. We believe that if you look at some of the infrastructure, that we're going to impact almost 200 jobs on the infrastructure side. And so that's impact for just $7 million. That's real impact. And so
Yeah, it's good
we've learned
ROI.
some things. We learned some things through it, and so we anticipate doing the next round in the spring, getting budget, assuming everything plays out with the budget as we anticipate. So that's one. So doing the Equitech. The
Great.
second one we also announced at Expo. Again, for folks that don't know, so TECO does investing from early stage, kind of very early stage, even out of the labs, all the way through growth stage. And so we're investing anywhere from 150 up to $2.5 million, and we can stack those funds. But one of the issues, Chris, that you have is that people have an idea. They have an idea in their head or the back of a napkin or in the garage, but it's not quite ready for prime time. It's not what we call venture ready. It's not ready for $100,000.
Hmm.
But what they need is maybe $25,000 to turn that idea into what's called a proof of concept or a minimum viable product. So at Expo, we announced five of these awards that we awarded $25,000 to folks. And then we had those five compete, and one of them got an additional $25,000. So one young lady got $50,000. And that's just game changing for these folks. That's game changing. But the other thing that we're doing, particularly, we're doing a pilot in Prince George's County in particular. We're trying to figure out how to get to, high net worth individuals who can write Chris a 5 or 10 or $15,000 check without, causing them issues. And can we bundle some of those and take those to entities? So bundling those dollars, what are called those
Hmm.
angel dollars with our $25,000. And can we start to create again? We figured out in Prince George's, and we bounce it around to all the other counties and create these angel networks that'll be
Hmm.
much more super hyper, what's called hyper local. Can we create hyper local angel networks that can focus on opportunities, whether that's in Prince George's or Montgomery or Calvert or Howard or all the other counties, or Baltimore City? And so that you can, so I get excited about
Yeah.
the ability to invest in these infrastructure, to invest in these. So that was great that we did that in December, because that's going to carry us into 2025. I think as we think macroly, if that's a word, in 2025, one is the budget. I mean, I'm here in Annapolis, and for folks that don't know the Maryland situation, we have a almost $3 billion budget hole. The governor made his announcement yesterday how he plans to address it. He'll take it through the legislative process, and we'll see. TEDCO's budget is fairly stable. We need to take one uh, cut of $5 million to our stem cell fund. Um, and then we have received $5 million for what's called our Cyber Maryland Fund. But we're going to be transitioning. Well, the plan is to transition that to the Department of Labor in collaboration with us. So, net, it's a given what some other agencies took, it's actually not a bad place to start. And so we'll see how it plays out. So the answer to your question is a lot of what we will think about doing is based off of that. But that said, our board has us very much focused on how do we begin to think differently about. We talk about this four-legged stool of resources that we have at TEDCO. One is the state, and that's a really long leg. That stool leg is really long. The next one is federal, and we've started to get pretty good. Stephen Allville leads our efforts there, and if we were a baseball player, we would be in the Hall of Fame with the batting average that we've gotten so far with our. So knock on wood or knock on electronic wood that we continue that batting average. The third leg of the stool that we're going after is philanthropic. How do we, and particularly around what I just talked about, the Concept Capital Fund, as well as our women's efforts, we are aggressively going after those foundations that are aligned to those types of programmatic things. And then lastly, we're calling it the corporate sector, but what that really is can we go out, Chris, and go raise a fund in a traditional venture model where we're raising funds from limited partners, from high net worth individuals, from family offices to invest in the TEDCO model, and even looking at that TEDCO model being expanded across the DMV. And so we're working with our board to launch that. And so we're excited about those types of efforts. How do we maintain what we get from the state? So this is not about replacing the state. It's about leveraging what we get from the state, uh, and being able to gain the resources we think, not think, we know we need to continue to scale these enterprises here in Maryland.
That's really awesome, Troy. As you're talking, what I'm thinking about is like TEDCO as a business, TEDCO as a startup, right? So
Hmm.
you've now these proven business lines of venture creation and capital returns, and that's largely state funded. And so it sounds like you're like, great, now let's take this to market and
Hmm.
get some other people to come in
That's exactly right.
and and trust our model.
100% right. You expressed it well. That's exactly right. Because and by the way, we've had what I call inbound calls that have said almost exactly what you said. They say, "Hey, we've been watching you. And and look, our tagline is in this is, look, we don't promise nor do we deliver best in class returns. That's because that's not our. We deliver good returns, market-based returns, market adjusted based returns. We also deliver economic impact because that is our double bottom line, and we have no problems and we don't apologize for having to do both. And when we look at when PitchBook puts out their analysis of venture funds, we get compared to those venture funds who don't have the same constraint. Don't forget, we can only invest in Maryland, and we have certain other
Yeah.
constraints that we have. So even given those constraints, we still perform with some of the best venture funds, which don't have anywhere near the constraints that we have.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. Well, it just goes to show you there's some, I like to say there's gold in them hills. There's gold and a lot of great people and innovation coming in here in Maryland.
No question. No, we're excited,
And the
and
community too, the community, it takes a community. So the other thing that comes to mind when you're talking about that is you're creating a culture. Like if you're getting a bunch of these high net worth individuals to then start to come together and kind of get back into the market through you all, there's a culture of reinvestment. That's
yeah.
not something that happens. That the Silicon Valley, it's a culture of supporting one another and taking risk and everything else. And it takes a lead horse to kind of direct everybody. And but there is a culture to innovation communities, and it takes this type of nurturing, fostering process.
Thank you for saying that word because the other element of 2025 that I personally am going to spend a lot of more time talking about is culture. And not just the culture of success that you just talked about, how do you keep it? But I think part of that culture of success you have to also talk about the value of what I call the value of failure, right?
Mhm.
And the value of failure is an important piece to have because we don't spend enough time talking about that. If you look at successful entrepreneurs, most of them have failed. They failed at least once, if not multiple times.
Mhm.
And I joke that you could fail 5 times, be bankrupt 3 times, and go raise $100 million in California. You
Yeah.
fail just one time here, and you might get blackballed. And
Yeah.
so I appreciate the word culture, Chris, because we've got to create the notion for. So there's two things I want your audience to hear on this. Is one is it's not just to create but it's about fast failing. I think we have to learn how to pivot faster when things aren't working. And so we've got to be able to teach our entrepreneurs that it's okay to pivot, it's okay to fail fast because we want you to get back up to go to the next version of it.
Mhm.
I'm an old software programmer, engineer, and one of my mentors told me all the time, said, the whole point of version one of software is to get to version two. Because
Mhm.
version one is going to be buggy, it ain't going to work, it's going to be crappy. But that's the whole point. Get it out,
Mhm.
let the market decide, and then get to version two. Too many entrepreneurs spend too much time trying and not launching. You got to launch, you got to see it fail, and you got to get to version two.
Yeah. It's a great analogy. I'll tell you, you and I talked a while back, and you talked about what we're doing, and we're like, you brought up Kodak, how we're like taking BioBuzz and we're pivoting into
Hmm.
a marketplace platform. So I'm going through a lot of that right now. First, and I'm telling you, it's not easy. It's not easy to put something out there. I mean, you go to our website today, there's a lot of stuff that aren't working the right way, but you know, Kat, my business partner, who's amazing,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
we're actually developing it through a partnership with a nonprofit commercialization company in Maryland. And we're all pushing each other, like, all right, let's just get it out. But
Get it
it
out.
kind of takes you kind of have to like be be willing and be willing to like get a couple black and blue eyes and get some
Amen.
people like
Amen.
because but but again, I'm going through this process. We've learned so much just in the process of putting out an incomplete product.
You cannot have thin skin and be an entrepreneur. To your, if you can't take feedback, if you can't take criticism, if you can't take people telling you you're crazy as hell, don't do this. Don't
Yeah,
do this thing. Don't do it. Because that's what it's gonna take. That
yeah,
you're going through that. People are gonna say,
yeah,
"What the hell is Chris putting out? What the this? What is this madness?"
yep, and yeah. But I again, I'm leaning on our brand. People know us. We've been around a long time. They know we're dedicated to doing something for the community. So the other thing that I want to just ask is like, TEDCO's building companies, right? You're
Mhm.
launching companies, you're building companies. But when you think about that culture and you think about, you said, Silicon Valley, you'll fail 5 times and you'll get raised $100 million. What do you see TEDCO's role in entrepreneurial workforce development? I don't know if that's the way to
Yeah.
put it, but like you want to create some failures, right? You kind of are betting that the failures we can create are going to go ahead and raise 100 million next time. I mean,
Yeah.
is that something you guys think about?
All the time. And again, I'm going to spend my time on platforms like yours, and I always appreciate being able to be on talking to you. But other platforms, there's going to be a consistent message for me in 2025 is we have to pivot faster, we
Mhm.
have to fail faster, and we have to relaunch even faster. I think that's going to be a consistent theme for me in 2025. And so,
Yeah.
and I think even within TEDCO, I told you I testified here yesterday. I have put up the org chart, said, we are purposely really small. We like to think of us as small but mighty because I want us to hustle. I want us to have that limited resources mindset like the entrepreneurs and the innovators that we fund. And so we are going to try stuff. And there's been stuff that we tried. For instance, I just got an email. I had an idea that I wanted to do with some early stage investing. And the team sent me back a note telling me all the reasons why it won't work. you know? And so, I literally just responded before I got on with you. I said, I understood. I'm not going to debate it, but hey, I had to ask, and so that's
Yeah.
the whole point. I had to ask,
Yeah.
why can't we do this? And they came back with sound logic,
Yeah.
and I said disappointed, but I get it, right? And so that's the kind of stuff we got. Hopefully, you use the word culture about the ecosystem, but also at TEDCO, the culture we're trying to create at TEDCO. built in our five core values is, but at the heart of them is, we can question one another. We can try some stuff out, put it up on the wall, see what sticks, because what could be the kernel of the idea, the whole idea might be crazy, but might be something within the crazy that actually is sane,
Yeah.
right?
There's often some genius in crazy, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
but the culture piece, like you have to have a diverse environment built on trust, right?
Hmm.
To be able to put crazy on the table sometimes, because if you don't have that trust and you don't have that diversity amongst the team, like you're going to get the same crazy every time. And then secondly, like no one's going to put it on the table if they don't trust each other and they don't have that environment.
The other two words I would add to your trust, the other two words though, and we talk a lot about these two words at TEDCO. One is vulnerability,
It's a
and
good
the
one.
other is transparency. Because I have to be vulnerable enough to open up myself enough to allow the crazy to be shown,
Yeah,
and transparent enough that I can take the critiquing and the criticism
yeah,
and not allow it to damage me, right? Then there's confidence is the other word there. It's trust, it's vulnerability, it's confidence, and it's transparency. I think all those things mixed together, Chris, we have to have both at TEDCO, and we are working on those, but we also have that in the ecosystem with our entrepreneurs.
yeah. That's great. Yeah, and with it goes with partners. I mentioned the group we're working with in Frederick, Science Works. Great group, and we're not in the same company, but we're partners now, and it takes that same type of thing that goes across the lines, right? That you have that trust, and you can go back to the point. You got to be willing to fail together, and
Hmm.
in an ecosystem where you're working together, that might mean two or three companies are failing together. That might right. That's an important element too, and to know that there's the courage there and the willingness to kind of go in and go after the crazy ideas together. That's important, and I think again, I think last year was foundational for the region. There's a lot of trust building, a lot more courage, I think, going into this year than there has been. Again, the tech hub experience, I think, was been
Hmm.
really good for everybody. Talk
Agreed.
about talk about leaning into failure, right? Like that's there's good stuff that's come out of that. We didn't get the big award, but look how much stronger things are as a result.
All extremely well articulated, Chris. I couldn't agree more. I want to call out, Mark Anthony Thomas and the GBC team. Actually, I'll see them tonight. I'm going to an event with them tonight. They herded cats, and the thing about herding cats is you're not going to get them to all go in north direction. But what you do want is them to go in a northerly direction. So somebody be going north by northwest or north by north south. But as long as you're generally going north, you like win. And
Yeah,
that's what Mark has done. And I'm in that boat too, that it was not about that we didn't get the 70 million, because I was like, if all we need is $70 million to build this ecosystem, then we're a whole lot further along than I think we are.
yeah,
But to have us come together, to galvanize around it, to have the governor, be supportive of it, that says a lot about our ecosystem. When I got here over almost 5 years ago, one of the federal opportunities, there were almost 10 grant applications from the state of Maryland, and we actually helped to shut down a couple of them. But in the last couple of rounds of these last big ones, because of the work that again Steven's been leading, we've gotten the people to rally around one to two, right? And so as opposed to us sending in 10 applications, we're all rallying around one or two. And Chris, one of the first definitions of leadership, I think people forget, is followership. And if you're going to be a good leader, you have to learn to be a good follower.
yeah,
And I believe that, like in this Tech Up effort, Mark is our leader. Everybody follows Mark.
yeah,
And we march behind Mark. That doesn't mean we're going to 100% agree with him. Hell, there's things I don't agree with. And I'll tell Mark that, but privately, but publicly, I am 110% behind what Mark and his GBC folks are doing.
yeah,
And there's going to be things that TechCo should lead. There's things that Commerce should lead, and things that Mech, whatever. We've got to learn as a state. We can't keep having all these sub scale efforts focus on the same question. We need to say we're going to focus on this one, and this is our leader on that one, and this is it. We're not
yeah.
going to have a bunch of small scale efforts. And I think that's what the Tech Hub taught us.
hmm Yeah, that's very well kind of pulled together. And I think it's right. And but being able to do that, it takes again, like the culture, right?
Hmm.
The culture has to be there, and it takes people seeing TEDCO follow GBC in this vein, and seeing the next time GBC follow, like it takes leadership showing followership in order to kind of create it. So I commend you all. I commend all of our ecosystem support groups that are out there right now, because I think that, to me, that's a reflection on 2024, that I think we've all emerged, I think, a little bit, stronger and more kind of united and more, aligned that way.
Somebody told me, and I hope I don't get you in trouble with anybody. So someone told me that collaboration is a shit show, but leadership is a toilet paper that cleans it up.
I love that. Well, whatever show we're in now, I think the last year showed that we cleaned up a lot of stuff, and we're on. It seems to me like we're on a good path, and I wish you all the luck today, and this with this session. I think you're doing really important work, because
Thank you, sir.
we all do need to lead the state and lead with the direction the state's going in, and likewise, I know the state does kind of follow and listen to the experts like yourself that have a proven business model and things. So
Thank you.
wish you the best of luck for a really good rest of the session down there.
Thank you, buddy.
Any other closing thoughts as we wrap up here today, Troy?
Again, Chris, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your role in this. I think too many times we don't talk about storytelling. Storytelling is an extremely important part of ecosystem building. I think part of the challenge we do have here in Maryland is that we do have some of the same assets that our friends in California and Massachusetts and New York and Austin have, but we've not told a good story around them. So I appreciate the role that you and others, and particularly you, are playing with storytelling that we're doing here in Maryland.
Yeah, appreciate that, Troy. Yeah, I think I've told you this before, but a lot of our inspiration came from a couple inflection points. One was, MedImmune kind of saw what we were doing when they were trying to kind of pull people to the region. They wanted storytelling to attract more talent to the region.
Hmm.
And then I attended a TEDCO event over at Johns Hopkins, and Steve Case was there from
Hmm.
AOL, and
Hmm.
I got a couple minutes to talk with him, and I was like, yeah, this company MedImmune's interested in investing in us to do more storytelling for the ecosystem. And he said a quote that I have on my desk. He said, every strong innovation ecosystem has a strong media partner, because
Hmm.
you need to tell the stories help unite, the stories help amplify and connect, and that was that was an inflection point, an inspiration point for us. So I appreciate you recognizing that.
No problem. No problem, brother. Again, appreciate you. Have a good one, man.
Likewise, you too, Troy. Thank
Stay
you all for
blessed. Be
tuning
good.
in. Troy, have a good rest of the day.
Take care, buddy. Be good.
All
Bye
right.
now.
Bye bye.